Well, I've been coming to the convention for probably 15 years. Haven't been for the last 3 years for obvious reasons, but it's great to be back. Great social occasions, lots to eat. My waistline goes up a little bit each time. Good to meet up with a lot of people, including my own radio club as well. We're here in force. But it's also good to actually attend a number of the technical sessions. There's always something new to learn. And I really do like the propagation and the EMC side.
I've been coming to the convention for 7 years.
This is my first convention.
I'm looking forward to finding out what's new in the hobby and also the social aspect.
At the convention, it's just like coming back to the family. I know so many people. I've been greeted by so many people that I've been meeting for 10 years plus.
It's great to be back at the convention. At long last, we've returned to good old Kent's Hill, and it's great to see so many people and be able to talk to them. A lot of people come because they want to listen to the talks, but I think the really important thing is that you can meet people, you talk to people on the radio, you can meet them, and I've been meeting people already who I've not spoken to for 4 or 5 years, and being able to converse with them at length, I think it would be fair to say, because most radio amateurs talk rather a lot. So it's been great fun, but the lectures, of course, are equally important.
I'm here at the convention this year because I was asked to present one of the lectures, and because I live in Turkey but I don't really like doing lectures remotely. I think you lose that sense of being with the audience. It's quite difficult. And also, I've never been to this event before. I've been normally to a lot of hamventions. Normally I go to 3 each year and have a stand there for QRP labs, and I've never been to an event like this which is just lectures. And I always find that at hamventions, the best thing I get out of it is talking to people, and the energy, the enthusiasm, the new ideas, and that's worth more to me than selling things over the table. So I'm quite curious to see what this event is like, and heard great things about it, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's really great to be back at the convention. I'm really excited to look at some of the technical talks. I quite enjoy those, and also catching up with friends as well. It's been 3 or 4 years, I think, since we were last here, so I'm keen to see what people have been working on, what projects and stuff, what the expeditions have been happening, and also catch up with friends, have a few beers and stuff. I see quite a few people at my local club a lot, but it's good to see people all around the country, and sort of Ireland and stuff, and all other countries around. So there's some friends over that we all meet up for a curry one evening, so it's good to do that, and also see the talks, conventions, that kind of thing.
Hello, we're at the RSGB convention, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by 3 presidents today. So it's fantastic to be able to talk to these gentlemen. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Stuart Bryant, G3YSX, the RSGB president, and Larry McGriskin, EI9CN, the IRTS president, and also Tim Ellum, VE6SH and G4HUA, the IARU president and our keynote speaker at the convention this year. It's great to be back in person at a convention this year, but I wonder how radio amateurs are feeling about going to physical events in each of your regions.
Well, first off, I support what you say. It's great that we're back in person, and it's also great that we've allowed our colleagues who can't get here to join us by making this a hybrid event, as we promised last year. So that's great. If I look at wider events, my impression is that people are slowly emerging from their COVID hibernation. We've got a reasonable number of people here this time. It'll be interesting to see how many go to the Hamfest next weekend. In club meetings, my experience is it's a bit mixed. There are some people who are still hibernating for all kinds of good reasons. And there are others who have come out to enjoy the company. And one of the things we've done, by the way, is at our club anyway, is all our meetings are now hybrid. So those who can't, for any reason, work or concerned about COVID still, they can still join with their friends at the club meetings.
really, our club members, I find, they come to the club meetings mainly for the camaraderie and the fun. And in that case, it's worked. Like yourselves, we operate in Zoom as well as a club meeting. So everybody gives us the best choice of everything that's available to us. So I think, all in the whole, amateurs are glad to be back in the club meetings again.
Yeah, I always say this hobby is all about the people you meet, the people that you get to know while you're operating or meeting in person. I think there has been a very big move, especially in North America, to come back to in-person meetings. But that's tempered with the fact that, given the demographic of the amateur population, many choose to participate now virtually, and most clubs have a virtual option. Certainly for outside events, I think I've seen a real uptick in things like fox hunting and field day, for example. There's been a real uptick in people attending those events.
And do you think this has changed the shape of clubs and groups, not just clubs, but groups as well, amateur radio groups and clubs? Do you think they're now different to they used to be?
Well, I think so, but I think the whole sort of structure is different from what it used to be. For example, the internet has become more of a core resource that helps us communicate and exchange ideas. I mean, if you go back, say 20 years even, right? The only way you could find stuff out was really go to a club meeting or buy a book or read a journal. But now the internet has become a sort of a key part. So I think it's a mixture.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think clubs have had to adapt, and they've had to change the way they do things. Remote operation, for example, I know my local club in Calgary has made great strides in making the club station available for remote operation. Again, a lot of the demographic has retired and maybe moved into a smaller facility where there's not enough room for antennas. So providing an outlet for them to contact and use the station remotely is really good, I think, for everyone.
And in our club, we worked it rather differently. We've concentrated more in the social atmosphere. We do give lectures for most classes, but we actually start our meeting off, a small group of us will go to dinner before the meeting. Others in the group go out for a breakfast morning. So we really value the social atmosphere that takes place in our club. That's the most valuable thing. They help one another with antennas, with antenna parties. They help one another in every respect. It's just very nice to see this non-fragmented approach in any club.
So there is an organisation that meets somewhere near where Steve lives that, as I understand it, is just a breakfast party and not a formal club. There are other groups, like, for example, some email lists, I think have all the properties of clubs. So I think we need to fundamentally think about what it means for a club or a club-like entity in 2022.
Yeah, I think that's right, Stuart. I mean, there are a lot of people that just get together to socialize and maybe get together to do a specific operating activity. They're not structured, they don't have a constitution or take minutes, but they're just as much a club as any other organization.
I haven't experienced such a club. Ours does have a constitution and a good one. I can't say anything about it, but I really enjoy our club. I enjoy meeting the lads. We have good fun, and that's the key part of it. We enjoy one another. We encourage people to join us, particularly youngsters, if we can get them in. It's the hardest part.
So I'd like to change direction a little bit if I can, and talk about spectrum challenges. So Tim, I wonder if you could outline some of the challenges that you think exist to amateur radio at the moment.
Yeah, I think the issues that we have with respect to spectrum and how we deal with some of those threats has changed. A lot of the people that go to ITU or RTO meetings are no longer engineers or even amateurs. You used to see a lot of people that were amateurs, but they tend to be lawyers and economists and have different priorities. And I think the whole concept of having bands, fixed bands, which no one's going to trespass on, that's long gone. You're going to see more and more calls to spectrum sharing, even on frequencies where we're primary.
And I think actually we need to be more dynamic ourselves with our band plans. I mean, the very fixed structure we have at the moment, I'm not convinced that's what we need in the future. I think we need a far more dynamic structure. And indeed, we tried to discuss. We sort of started to discuss this in terms of contests, but I think we've got a long way before we get there. But if there is a peak demand for one type of activity, I don't see why we can't share and share alike amongst the different groups.
Yep.
When amateur radio started, we all operated effectively what was a medium wave band until amateurs discovered the spark gap transmitter, and they moved from that. And of course, no sooner had they done it that the forces, the governments took over and told the amateurs, move up to shortwave. Nobody can possibly make use of it up there. And once again, the amateurs demonstrated to the world that they could contact the world, and eventually they were thrown off that band at those areas as well. And we were then in 1949 granted the bands we have, and I would firmly hold on to those bands.
No, I think that's right. Obviously, that's where our efforts should lie, but there are going to be pressures to coexist maybe with other services more than we're doing now, especially on the upper spectrum where we're not using it as much as we can.
And there's a resurgence in demand for the lower spectrum as well, isn't there? Yeah. So people have now consider satellites to be a very vulnerable primary communications means. And so with some of the new technology, some of the new modes that are being developed, the new professional modes, we're seeing a push back for the professionals to want large blocks of spectrum to do data linking and those sorts of services in HF.
Yeah, that's possible too. This French proposal there, this French spectrum regulators are supporting an application, if I understand it correctly, by a telecommunications company to effectively take over the entire 2-meter band. Have I got that wrong?
Well, I think there was some suggestion that that's what they'd like to do, but again, it was under the concept of spectrum sharing. You know, we do not make as much use of the 2-meter band as we do, and if there's available times and spectrum that can be shared, that's going to be pressure on us. I think the whole sense of regulators now is they don't look at defined segments of the spectrum, but they say, we got all this spectrum here, who's using it? Let's see if we can divide it up by time instead of by use.
We do have one particular vulnerability though, and that's all the weak signal work we do means that some forms of sharing don't really work. A share at the same time doesn't work as well as, for example, you can have it Monday and we'll have it Tuesday.
No, that's right, and that's something that I think the people who go on behalf of IARU and other societies, like both of yours, to ITU and RTO meetings have to make clear that there are specific segments of a band which would not lend themselves to sharing. Perhaps others would.
And how do you see the importance of the national societies and then working with the IARU on some of those threats?
We couldn't do the work that we do, Steve, without our member societies. We have 164 of them. 2 excellent societies, IRTS and RSGB, lend volunteers to us to do that work. And I cannot put enough emphasis on amateurs joining their member society. I don't think we showcase enough the type of work that our volunteers do and how much of a benefit it is to members.
The most fundamental asset that we have is our spectrum, right? If there was no spectrum, there'd be no amateur radio. And it's these national societies working together and providing resources to defend the spectrum against some very well-heeled, very highly motivated predators who would like this spectrum that we occupy. Joining your national society is really important to help protect the fundamental of amateur radio, which is spectrum.
But the societies then take it a step further. They're responsible for ensuring that the amateurs are represented in international and national fora, and really we have to support our societies in every way we can.
I always find it surprising as well that other organizations, pleasure boaters, even the NRA in the US, to use an extreme example, they have no difficulty getting members. And people flock to join them because they recognize the value that being a member of those type of organizations has on the enjoyment that they do, whether it's boating or something else. But there seems to be a real difficulty getting amateurs to join national societies, and I know it's shared across the board, and that's something I never understand.
And yet, if I look at it in a different aspect, I fly model aeroplanes as one of my other hobbies, and there was a major threat to the freedom to fly model aircraft in this country, and it was the National Society, with the help of its members, that pushed through a significant sort of liberalisation of the really quite strict rules that were originally planned. So, working together, we can influence the regulators.
That's right.
And they do that very well, I believe, and have done it since the early days of amateur radio.
Yes.
In recent years, we've seen a good uptick in membership, haven't we, Stuart, within the RSGB, with newcomers coming in over the last 2 years or so, and membership has grown really nicely. But I think it's important to try and keep those people and to let them know about all of the international work that's done on their behalf by all of the national societies. As Tim told us how many there were in the world, I think. How many was it?
Right now, 164.
There we go. All of those societies get together through the IARU.
But the important thing, the way we got that large growth was to think outside the box. We had an emergency, which was COVID, and we completely rethought how we were going to do our exam system. And I think this applies to many other aspects of amateur radio. We can't be bound by how we used to do it. We've got to do what's right for the future.
Okay, I'm sure these discussions are going to continue, but I'd really just like to thank Stuart and Larry and Tim for joining us here today.
Well, contesting is a very popular part of the hobby. And with me is Andy Cook, G4PIQ, and you're the RSGB VHF contest chair.
I am, for my sins.
So do tell us a little bit about what VHF contesting is all about. I know a lot of people do HF, but not maybe quite so many doing VHF.
No, in many ways it's quite similar. It's about going on, making as many contacts as you can in a period of time, often with as many squares or as many countries as you can, at as much aggregate distance as possible. And I know contesting is not everyone's cup of tea, but I think the thing about contesting at VHF is it's really the time that the bands come alive now. Most contesting happens on SSB, and often when you tune around the SSB end of the band right now, it can be pretty quiet, but in a major contest it can be rammed absolutely end to end. So it really is the time that things come alive. But for me, it's always been a tremendous passion. I don't mind whether I'm sitting with high power and big antennas at a fantastic station, or whether I'm at home with a small antenna winkling a few bits and pieces out. It's the satisfaction of going and grabbing bits and pieces and doing perhaps better than you did last time.
And would I be right in thinking that the antennas for VHF, if you're constrained for space, that the antennas for VHF don't necessarily have to take up as much space as the ones for HF?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for a VHF contest, the ideal thing that you want is a small Yagi, and that could even be something like a 5-element Yagi, which is not much bigger than a traditional FM radio antenna. So really quite small on a pole. So very easy to operate with without big equipment. You don't need lots of equipment to get into this. So if you're someone new to the hobby, if you had an FM handheld, you might be able to join in our FM activity contests, which are on a Tuesday night for 55 minutes. For that to work, you probably need to be somewhere close to the centre of activity. But if you've got an all-mode radio, every Tuesday night on 2 meters, every first Tuesday night on 2 meters, every second Tuesday night on 70 centimeters, we have a 2.5-hour contest where on 2 meters we probably have 500 stations active in the UK. You'll be able to come on, you'll be able to work a load of stuff. The band will sound really busy, whereas it's often quite quiet at other times. So great opportunities for people to come on with very limited equipment. You just need a basic transceiver, ideally a small beam, but a dipole will do.
And I believe you've got some awards for foundation and intermediate.
Absolutely. So we don't only award the people who win the contest overall. We provide an award to the leading intermediate station, we provide an award to the leading foundation station, and we provide an award to the leading under 18 station as well. And actually everyone can get their own certificates, even if you don't win one of the top awards. There's a downloadable certificate available for whatever you achieve in that contest.
Right. Any other recommendations for people who are then on an HF now, and how quickly you could just try this with VHF, see if you enjoy it?
So I think there are a number of types of contests. We have contests for, most contests are SSB, but we have CW contests, we have FM contests, and we have also FT8 contests if you're into that side of things. I think the first Tuesday, second Tuesday contests on 2 and 70 are a great entry point. There are also weekend contests as well, where it's often a great opportunity to work good DX, because these are often coordinated across Europe. And so you have stations going out into fantastic sites. I'm going to talk about some of them later on in my talk. People thousands of meters up a mountain, and people 800-900 kilometers away can be S9, and remarkable QSOs we made in those sorts of coordinated events.
Hello, I'm here at the RSGB Convention 2022 and I'm here with David Bowman, G0MRF from AMSAT UK. Hello David.
Hello Steve, it's really nice to be back here in person. Zoom has its place, but meeting friends in person here at Kent's Hill is a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, it's fantastic for us to be back here. I think it was 2019 we were here last. But in the years before lockdown, then AMSAT joined us here for your colloquium at our convention, and it seems to work really well for both groups, I think.
It's a very nice mix. We have our trusted AMSAT members turning up on a regular basis, but it's really nice to get people who are more interested in HF just wandering into our lecture stream and suddenly becoming interested in something that we're presenting. So we gain in membership, and equally some of our people get to see what's going on in the HF world.
Yeah, I think that cross-fertilisation is really good. People that maybe wouldn't go to an entirely satellite event, but they just go over for 1 or 2 lectures, and vice versa as well, because we get people coming to the HF or the VHF streams that perhaps are dedicated satellite fans.
We do. It's a very diverse programme of events, and when you look at the programme before the weekend, it's nice to be able to pick out a lot of different talks and programme in your mind what you're going to see. Yeah. It's a good opportunity to get a very broad appreciation of amateur radio.
Yep, and we're live streaming from the RSGB streams, but I know you're doing the same from the AMSAT stream as well. So what are the highlights in the AMSAT stream?
Well, we've got a few things this year which we're looking forward to. AMSAT UK is announcing a new project, a new satellite project. We're building a 3U CubeSat. It's at the very early design stage, but we'll be looking at some of the initial decisions taken on that. It's going to take a couple of years to come to fruition, but we're in the early stages and we'll be presenting that in one of the streams over the weekend. We've also got Neil Melville from European Space Agency. Neil's a great speaker and a radio amateur, very good fun person. He's in charge of the zero gravity flights at the European Space Agency. And he'll be telling us a little bit more about the Vomit Comet and some of the things he's been up to in the last year or two.
So David, where do people go to actually see your live stream then?
We have a live stream via the BATC website. It's covering both days here at the convention, and in between we'll be showing the programme on screen so people can dip in and out as they like. It'll also be available for viewing in the future. They can just go back to the website and watch the recording at a later date if they want to.
That's excellent. Thank you, David.
Neil Melville, PA9N. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming in straight away after you've given that talk as well. We'll let you have a bit of break and lunch after this, but I'd love to hear from you. First, I've got to say, your job title, ESA's Parabolic Flight Coordinator.
That's right.
Do tell us what that is.
So basically for that I'm responsible for running ESA's parabolic flight campaigns, and parabolic flight is a way in which we get zero gravity using an aircraft instead of having to go to space, so we can do some scientific research and some technology checks and training astronauts just using an aeroplane that's falling out the sky instead of having to go all the way to the International Space Station.
So I've seen sort of things on TV where you see a big jumbo jet or something like that and people floating around inside. Is that the sort of thing you do?
Yeah, that's
coordinate
exactly
that
the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how did you start? Because I've got a note here to say that you started from a very early age. You've always been interested in space?
That's right, yeah, I've always been interested. I was studying physics at university, and I got involved via the ESA education office. They had this outreach, actually inviting for students to apply for a parabolic flight, which is what I did, and I got on board as a student with a small scientific experiment and thought, well, I quite like this, quite like zero G, and applied from that to be a young graduate trainee at the European Space Agency in the education office. So then I helped run the next zero G.
And this is in your 20s, I presume?
Yeah, this was age 20, 22, 21 as a student I flew, and then I joined as a trainee with the agency at 22. So it's 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, it is 20 years ago.
But I mean, one of the things you did, I read, was that you built and flew the first student microsatellite.
Yes. So while I was in the education office, my boss at the time was a Dutch astronaut, Wobbo Ockels. He was a very kind of inspirational guy that thought students and young people could achieve anything, and he used to set us ridiculous goals to challenge us. And
these are boyhood dreams, though, aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
For real.
So he said to me, "I'd like you to work on this spacecraft," and we had a year and a half to go from feasibility study to flight readiness of like 70 kilogram microsatellite, which is and I knew nothing. I was a physicist. We had teams from all over Europe participating. We got lots of students involved building individual subsystems. We didn't have any students that were particularly good at radio at the time, which is how I first got involved with AMSAT-UK. We thought, let's go to the radio amateurs, and I'm sure they can help us.
So you weren't a radio amateur at first?
No, not then.
Okay.
That was why I got in contact with AMSAT, and which has been fantastic ever since. So together we built this spacecraft. AMSAT provided the radios on board, that were on board, and of course ended up working with a lot of the students, and a lot of us from the team then became radio amateurs as a result of that first contact. So I like to think it's a good example of how we managed to get some new young people into the hobby, which was pretty cool. And then we built this thing and flew it, which was a fantastic experience. That turned me from being a physicist into being an engineer. You learn by doing, and especially by doing it wrong, and we did everything wrong, so we learned a lot. It was a really, really great project, and that taught me system engineering, which is what I've done for most of my 20 years at ESA ever since. Payload system engineering, experiments that go to the International Space Station or on Russian capsules, not so much anymore, sounding rockets, this kind of stuff. So I've sent quite a few things up now. I've been very lucky. And I still do some of that, but since 2016, so the last 6 or 7 years, I'm responsible for running ESA's parabolic flight campaigns. So instead of making experiments for the space station or whatever, we're putting experiments on an aircraft. It's an A310. It's quite a large aircraft. We can take 40 scientists and engineers and about 10 or 12 experiments.
Does everybody float around inside?
Yeah. Well, around the experiments, you're not allowed to free float because before the zero G, so the plane flies as normal. Then you get 20 seconds of pull up into the air, so 50 degrees nose up, and during that 20 seconds you get double gravity. So everything's pulled down twice as much as normal, and then they let go, they basically cut back on the engine so you fall over the top. You get 20 seconds of zero gravity while you fall, and then you're plummeting out the sky nose down as fast as this large plane can go, so they have to pull out, and you get another 20 seconds of double gravity. So you can't float around above the experiments, because when the double gravity comes on, you're going to fall and hurt yourself or hurt other people or damage the experiments. So around them you're sitting on like padded floor walls and ceiling, but you're under a strap with your legs or your feet. We do have a small area at the back where, if you're not currently busy, you can go and have a little bit of fun.
Be strapped in away.
Then you don't need to be strapped in. Okay. That's a little netted area where you can free float and have some fun with it.
So I mean, 20 seconds is not that long to me anyway for an experiment. So what sort of experiments do you do up there?
Really a lot of diversity, and obviously there's human physiology, because the human body reacts very quickly to zero G. I can tell you that because I have to be on board every time. It's a terrible job. Someone's got to do it. We do a lot of fundamental physics. A lot of heat transfer stuff, because evaporation, boiling, condensation, all of that works very differently without convection. and it's very important for us to understand that for like chemical processes and stuff in space later on. We do some technology tests, like testing deployable antennas and things that we need to know they work before we put them on satellites in orbit. But of course, you want to keep them very light and simple for the launch mass budget. So you can't have them strong enough that they'd survive in 1G. So you try to deploy them here and they just like snap or bend or something. But you can take them on the plane and you can test them that they work in 0G for a very relatively small cost before they fly. So there's really a huge range of things we do.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And each flight, I should say, is not just one 20-second parabola. We do that every 3 minutes for 2 hours.
Wow. Well, that's
it's like 30,
that's a lot.
31
and that's going to be
parabolas per flight.
tiring on the body as well.
Oh yeah. It's surprisingly hard work.
Well, it sounds good. Before you go, I must ask you though, there may be some young people watching now and just, you know, itching to get involved with space. How would you recommend a young person, well, not so young maybe, get involved with space professionally?
Well, I mean, to start, of course, I have to say the ESA Academy, they have quite a lot of outreach projects to all 3 levels of education. So at primary and secondary level, it's best if the parents encourage the school to get in contact, and there's all sorts of activities. You can find them on esa.int as well. At the tertiary level, it's much more hands-on, and students can apply for student parabolic flight campaigns, for even sending hardware to the ISS, putting hardware on our drop tower for zero gravity. There's a lot of ways they can get involved. And some of that's extracurricular, some of it's in line, of course. They should try to study the right subjects. And has someone got to be academically good? They've got to have a degree level, do you think, to get into the ESA for most people? For those student projects, they don't need to. They need to be studying some kind of science or engineering, but they don't have to have graduated yet.
Okay.
So they can start quite early. To actually come and work for ESA, you need at least a master's.
Right. Yeah. Neil, thank you ever so much for joining us. So we're going to let you have a well-earned break now after your talk and then coming to talk to us. Many thanks. I'm joined now with the chairman of the board of the RSGB, Richard Horton, G4AOJ.
Good afternoon to you.
Good to see you, Richard.
Thank you.
Lovely convention, lovely to see people together again.
I think so. I agree with that. I think the impact of lockdown has to be made people a little bit reluctant to socialise, and it's nice actually to be here in person and to meet people and to have live lectures and so on.
Definitely.
And I think it's very good that you don't have to be here to see those lectures, that you can actually see them on the streamer.
Yeah.
So we've got to some extent the best of both worlds.
And that's the idea, and I guess that's the future now, probably. It's some kind of hybrid world, but you can't beat meeting some people. It's very good to see you.
Nice to hook up with you.
Yeah, so you, and when I first met you a couple of years ago, you were the treasurer.
That's right.
Now you're the chairman of the board.
Yes, I know. They can't get rid of me.
I'm sure it's not like that. Looking forward to the challenge?
Yes, I think so. There are a lot of challenges for amateur radio in general, some of which we can do very little about. You know, we suffer from
spectrum use and things.
Spectrum challenges will continue. Yeah. We have an ageing population. To that extent, we partly mirror society. And I suppose we have a reluctance for people to communicate and congregate in groups. It seems to affect not just amateur radio clubs. I used to play professional bridge. I don't anymore, but bridge clubs are suffering the same sort of issue, that people are reluctant to go back. So there are quite a lot of challenges that we face as a society and as a hobby in order to keep going, as it were.
Any idea of what we can do, all of us, not just you, but all of us, members of clubs and things like that? Are clubs quite an important part, do you think, of that future?
I do, but I also think the best thing that the individual amateurs can do is be active. In terms of spectrum challenges, one of the big defences that we have is that we use the spectrum. So when you tune onto 2 metres of the weekend and you can't hear anything at all, you're actually opening up a commercial challenge. Well, they're not using it. Why should they have it? And so on. So it's important to engage in the hobby, use spectrum. Obviously, if your thing is building rather than operating, that might mean that you have to change your habits a bit. But I think the best thing we can do as individual amateurs is actually to use the spectrum we have and to use it intelligently. So develop new techniques and experiment, which is the root of
the base of the hobby, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. What about Richard the amateur then? What are you interested in personally?
Well, I've done most things since I was licensed in '71, but over the last 2 years or so, my focus has been QO100, which may not come as a surprise, and I've acquired quite a lot of kit, and I've had some successful contacts on narrowband, And now I'm turning my attention to the video television part of that package. The British Amateur Television Club have designed a TV transmitter called the Portsdown, built around a Raspberry Pi. It's deceptively simple and offers a very straightforward way to generate television pictures. You then need the usual collection of linears and transverters to make it all work properly, but the core of it is there and it's accessible. So I've got one of those working. I've got a linear. I haven't dared switch it on, but that's my next project.
And they have a net every Thursday night, and I actually called it for the first time myself the other night, actually, on a Thursday night.
They're very slick because not only do they have that net on QO100, but they stream it. So you don't actually need video transmitting and receiving equipment yourself. You can go on their streamer and you obviously can't transmit, but you can hear the conversation and see the individuals who've built and made equipment work and them explaining their stations to their colleagues. It's quite something actually.
It's good to hear that you're getting into that. Future of the hobby. I mean, I'll just ask all radio amateurs this who are actively involved. What do you think is the next great thing that we can get involved with as a hobbyist?
Do you know, I really don't know the answer to that, and I mean that's partly because you never know what's coming next. If someone had said to me when I built my 3-valve top band transmitter in 1971, what do you think is going to happen? I wouldn't have envisaged, you know, digital television, geostationary satellites. You know, non-geostationary satellites were barely a thing then, and I just think it's quite difficult to predict the future. But what I do think will be the case is there will be a lot more change and a lot more opportunity for experimentation by individual amateurs. And I think as computing power continues to increase, the ability of amateurs to do things they weren't able to do before, as is the case with television, will be enhanced.
So we shouldn't look at computers and things as a threat. We should look upon them as an opportunity to experiment.
I mean, I used to, one of my biggest interests in the early 90s was RTTY. And I would never, ever have got a Creed 7B teleprinter in my house.
Or be allowed it.
Or be allowed it. But a Windows PC running appropriate software with a terminal unit, no bother. So I think, you know, that was an example of computers allowing me to do something that I would have struggled to do otherwise. And I think that's the general view you've got to take. And D-Star is obviously another example of that, where, you know, with a hotspot and a PC, the world is your oyster.
Absolutely.
No, the computers are definitely not a threat. Well, that's not fair. They're a threat to the individual amateur because no sooner have you wired them up than they throw a glitch at you.
Oh, we had that this morning here. Don't mention that. Richard, it's been lovely to meet you. Good luck to you and the board for guiding the society and their radio amateurs through the next, how many years it's going to be. Thank you very much for joining us. With me now is Stan Lee, G4XXI. You're now the RSGB Company Secretary.
Yes, indeed.
And that's relatively recent, but you're no stranger to the board of the RSGB.
No, that's right. I joined the board first, I think about 2012, and served for about 3 years. I took the IOTA portfolio and I went off to really work that up with IOTA off the board for really the last several years, and they've been pestering me to come back, and I didn't want to come back as a director, but they brought me back as company secretary.
All right, and I mean, you started that, was that April that you were?
Yes, it's about that, April, May time, yes, that's right.
Pardon, I don't think I'll be the only one watching maybe who's a little bit ignorant to what the job really is of a company secretary. So what do you do day to day to do with the society and the board?
Day to day. Well, the most mundane task, which everybody I think will appreciate, is that you look after the minutes. You make sure that meetings are properly minuted. You make sure that they're approved. You make sure that the directors are following up on the minutes. But there's a bigger job, which is really to make sure it's about good governance within the society. So whatever the rules are for the society running itself, I should really be the go-to person who makes sure that they're
So you provide some guidance to the rest of the board to make sure they do?
If I believe it's needed. And if a board member doesn't know, what they should be doing as a board member, then I can point them to the right direction. what does a board member do? And I think that's quite important today. People have misconceptions about that sometimes. And it's a busy job, and I can help out in that. And we're trying to get more board members all the time. And if anybody out there wants to be a board member, please contact me.
There really are vacancies, are there, on the board?
Yes. We're eager to get more people. We're under strength at the moment, and we'd like more people. We'd like more women, and we'd like more, to be less of a elderly, white sort of presentation to people.
I mean, we're now emerging, the whole world is emerging from a pandemic. It's been challenging few years, and it's fair to say a lot of things have changed in that time. But our hobby seems to have been something to provide a lot of comfort to people, because it's a hobby people could do at home and also communicate and keep in touch with others. So what are your personal hopes then for the hobby of amateur radio as we look for the next few years, for example?
Well, when I look back at my own career, in quotation marks, in amateur radio, I first became interested when I was 11, believe it or not. I didn't actually become licensed until I was in my 30s. And it's provided me with such interest and such companionship, really, over a great period of years. I mean, the great thing about amateur radio, when it works well, when people support each other, being in amateur radio started with me through contacting the Edgware Club in North London. There were a couple of people there, John G3SJE, who I'd love to mention, he's dead now, but he taught me CW. I'd always struggled with CW, and he taught me CW. He sent me the names of cactus plants and dinosaurs in Morse code.
Well, I haven't heard of that one. We've got a lot of keen Morse CW operators in our club, and I've not heard of them. The cactus and dinosaurs.
Yes, because they're not predictive. I mean, if you're sending.
I see.
So
You're right.
Yes,
no, it's not an everyday word.
And I owe it to him really that I got my full license, G4XXI, and there were other people there that were wonderfully helpful as well.
And there's a lot more to discover, isn't there, in this hobby as well?
So. And I've recently, and I know there's people out there who think that FT8 isn't real radio. I met one of them just before lunch. He's a good friend. But I've had such fun with FT8 over the period of COVID.
Yeah. Especially when the propagation cycle, we've been at the bottom and it hasn't been easy.
It's been wonderful.
It has been a way of communicating. The only thing I've heard it said about it is it's not really a conversational mode. So we've maybe lost some of the art of actually talking to people through it because it's so slow and everything. So maybe now we're in propagation cycle 25, we're on the way out. Maybe we should get back to some of those other conversational modes, do you think?
I hope that happens, but I've seen a tendency in amateur radio for QSOs to become more and more formulaic, what's the weather like? It's sunny, the temperature's this, and even not as much as that. The name is Stan, thanks for the QSO, you're 5 and 9, goodbye type of thing. But I think that undersells the hobby. There's always a chance to make real friendships.
And absolutely, and now that we're back in real conventions like this, people meeting each other, seeing each other again, hopefully that means that people are going to start having chats and conversations.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go to many of the talks because I've bumped into so many people that I've known.
Yes.
That it's.
But that's part of the convention, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's been good. It's been great.
I should mention anybody at home now, if you are not too far from Milton Keynes, it's not too late to get a ticket for tomorrow. You can walk up of the door and buy a ticket on the door tomorrow to look at it on Sunday. But if not, we hope that bringing it to people at home, of course, has inspired them to come along next year. Stan, it's been lovely to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm now with Chris Wood, who's the RSGB Honorary Treasurer. Your call sign GD6TWF. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very
so
much.
That means you're Isle of Man?
Yes. And I've been there 32 years or something, so I went over thinking I'd be there for a year or two. And
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've sort of remained
One of
in the
those
place.
sort of moves.
Yes.
But I guess you come over to the mainland quite a bit.
Yeah, and I did when I was working, because I worked for a bank, so I was travelling quite a bit with my job. So, but obviously COVID has restricted that, and now it's getting back to normal.
I guess most people would understand what the basic job is of a treasurer of a society like this, but we talk specifically about membership, because it's all about that, isn't it? That's where the funds come from, basically. Membership at the moment for the RSGB, how's it looking?
Very strong, very strong. It was helped by the pandemic, where we saw people looking for new hobbies, and it was an ideal hobby because you could do it from home, and you could train, with the online exams, you could do it all sort of remotely. And the online exams have helped as well, because I know that some people who are housebound have given them access to a hobby that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, because they couldn't get along to a club to do the courses.
Yes, and as well as newcomers to the hobby as well, I guess you've got people returning to the hobby who maybe had left it.
I don't know the statistics on that, but I suspect there are people that hadn't been active, because of other commitments, and then thought, well, I've got all this time, I can become active again and get back into the RSGB, because it's all the things I need, like a quality magazine and so on.
Now, as we emerge from the pandemic, I think it's not over, I think we all accept, but it is the new world that we're in. Where do you see the society going now? And I guess from the financial point of view and things, we're now doing, after all, this big live event here. Nice to see people again and everything. But we're also online, indeed, as what we're doing now, talking to everyone. So is that how you see the future?
Yes, very much so, because living somewhere relatively isolated, it is very expensive to come to events like this. So people have really got to want to come to make the financial commitment to travel, because it's not like you're 50 miles away and can drive down the motorway. You've got a ferry or a flight to catch to get here. So I think it makes the RSGB more accessible. Geography becomes less important. It is also a limitation, because people get too used to just doing stuff remotely, and that is a barrier. I'm a firm believer in getting out and talking to people and seeing people and learning from them. And I've picked, walking around today, yesterday and today, I've talked to a lot of people and picked up all sorts of stuff and really enjoyed the lectures. I've been. I suppose I've not really engaged with the convention very much before, and having a full-on sort of experience of it, I found it really engaging, really enjoyed it.
And what are your own personal interests in the hobby? What's the favourite things for you?
I do a little bit of portable operating on 2 meters for the low power contests. There's a big hill just behind me, which makes life very easy. We live in a valley, so it's hopeless as a VHF location. I've got to probably take off somewhere across Ireland. I've never mapped it, but it's probably a good.
Maybe satellites might be a good thing to look at.
Well, funny enough, I've got a 90 centimetre dish sat in the garage, and QO100 is one of the next projects. At the moment, I have to confess that everything is disassembled, because the room that I use had a water leak earlier in the year, and I emptied it to redecorate it, then decided I wanted to build a new desk, and then decided I wanted to build a new bookcase. So all of this has meant that everything's remained sort of in storage temporarily, but hopefully in the next month or two it will get sorted out, so I can get back on the air.
Good. Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks for all the work you're doing with the board. I hope that you and other of your colleagues who've been here at the convention as well have been able to meet members and find out what their expectations are of the society and the hobby, because we've got to take it forward.
Indeed, and I'm also at the Hamvention next week as well.
Right.
So on Friday. So anyone that was there, I'm more than happy to meet with them.
Hello there, I'm here with the new RadCom team at the convention. So with me today I've got Ed O'Neill, M0TZX, the RadCom managing editor. I've got Matt Smith, M0VWS, the RadCom technical editor, and Peter Duffett-Smith, GM3XJE, the RadCom Plus editor. Sadly not with us today is Lee Aldridge, G4EJB, who's the editor for RadCom Basics. So we're just going to have a word with the team and let them introduce themselves to you. So Ed, first of all, managing editor. You said that this is your dream job. We talked about that during the interview stages and everything like that, and since. So what makes it that for you?
Well, I've always been interested in working with words. I've always been a creative person. Sort of the more literary subjects were my strong points at school. So, and I later in life have enjoyed writing my own publications and working on those. And later in life I discovered a passion for radio, which was always there, but I became licensed later on. And I started writing about radio for fun. So when I saw the advertisement come up for the post, I thought the combination of my two passions would make it a dream job for me. And I still, having been there for 6 weeks, I still feel like
you're still sure about that, are you?
It's a dream job, yes.
Excellent. We'll try not to dissuade you from that idea. But what aspects of amateur radio are you really interested in? What does it for you?
So my biggest passion is CW and Morse code. That comes from being quite a keen war historian and seeing the role of code in the war, and of course the efforts of the people who broke the code, not far from here. So once I'd completed my licenses, I studied with a group called CW Ops to get up to around 25 words a minute.
And they're here today as well.
They are here today. I've spent some time speaking to them. They're a good bunch. Their training facilities are excellent, and I was lucky enough to be a product of that. Since then I've been teaching. I've taught radio licenses at all levels through multiple students, and I've taught Morse code and CW operation. On the operating side, I'm mostly HF, CW, pretty much 99% of the time. But I do enjoy a rag chew on 40 metres or 80 metres. I enjoy a bit of construction, so I enjoy building QRP kits. I've done some 3D printing and built some antennas that way, which I've taken out to the field and enjoyed working with. Those are my main.
Testing the products then, testing the
results.
results.
Exactly right. Yes, I get satisfaction from building my own things. Really, I've built simple things like ATUs as well. So, but those are my main passions.
Brilliant. So turning to Matt then, technical editor. What are your interests? The technical editor role is very wide. We know that.
Yep.
What's amateur radio for you?
Well, amateur radio for me is basically one of the best hobbies in the world, and I've always enjoyed radio ever since I was much younger, and the aspect of being able to communicate much further than you can without the aid of the technologies is fascinating for me. And amateur radio for me is about chasing that rare DX. I'm always looking for the islands. I'm always looking for rare call signs, or adding that call sign to my logbook that I just have never had before. And I enjoy working all HF bands and primarily voice modes and a little bit of data as well. So that's my main.
Is it fair to
task.
describe you as an active amateur? That's the big question.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean,
there you go.
I've got one just. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm active whenever I can be. Put it that way. I try to get involved in as much as I can with my local clubs and local societies and groups where I can, and I think that this hobby is excellent from the point of view of, as you say, about being active, because you can be very active if you want to, but there's no necessity to be involving amateur radio in your daily life every day. You can do one club meeting a week or one a month, and it's also perfectly fine.
So, what history, what your own personal history, what sort of things have you done previously that's come together into making you technical editor for RadCom then?
Okay, well, my previous experience is in the aerospace industry.
Right.
I've worked in electronics in aerospace for 17 years, and mostly on private satellite builds, electrical integration of units on satellites, and I've spent a lot of time developing new methods to integrate one piece of technology to another, to do with signal types and the different interface buses that go between those units. And that's taught me a lot, but primarily how not to break things in the electronics industry, and that is something which I'm trying to move forward into the amateur radio domain.
Try not to let the smoke out.
That's correct. That's the number one.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, we may come back for a bit more about the technical editor role.
Okay.
But Peter, great to see you here, by the way, at the convention. You've been working on RadCom Plus for a while now. What do you think is the purpose of RadCom Plus? Now, I've got my ideas, and I'm sure Ed has as well. But you've been the editor for a while, so how do you describe it?
Well, the big difference between RadCom and RadCom Plus is that RadCom Plus is online, and so therefore there isn't the restriction of having to fit in a number of words to fit a page size. You can be expansive in RadCom Plus, and so we tend to get articles in RadCom Plus which are longer. It doesn't have to be, but if you've done a construction project, for example, which requires lots of pictures and lots of explanation, you can have 15
circuit
pages.
diagrams and that sort of thing,
all of that sort of thing. Well, circuit diagrams sometimes are difficult, actually, but anyway, all of that sort of thing. You can go to RadCom Plus. And sometimes I've heard it described as RadCom Plus is for the more technically minded radio amateur, but we're all technically minded, we're radio amateurs, and I wouldn't like to think that RadCom Plus is in some sense only for a select few. I think all of the publications that we have are for everybody.
Yep. And I know Lee Aldridge can't be with us, but RadCom Basics is a good example of that, because I don't think it's just for the newcomers. I think it's for people that want to try something new. That, you know, they might have been doing amateur radio for years, but something has come along that they haven't tried yet. They might start with it there. So
exactly, yes.
RadCom, it's become a family, isn't it, of publications, and you know
absolutely,
keeping that going like that and giving people an opportunity is, you know, a fantastic thing. So what sort of topics are you looking for in RadCom Plus for, you know, authors and things like that? What would you like to see coming into you?
Everything. I think that people who want to write about something, let them write, and let them send in. And if they're not sure whether this is RadCom Plus or RadCom Basics, it doesn't matter. We are a team and we're joined at the hip. And therefore you can send anything to any of us and we'll make sure it goes to the right place.
And the same question to you, Matt, really, you know, from the technical editor role for RadCom, any particular topics that you're interested in receiving articles for, or is it just absolutely anything, send it in?
That's a good question, because we do receive quite a varied selection of articles, but the ones that seem to strike the most interest are articles about antenna building, and antenna theory as well. We welcome on the technical side articles about pretty much any project, self-build, radio kits, anything that people have engineered themselves. Also very interesting for us, but particularly at the moment we're looking for antenna projects for our antennas column. So that would be excellent if we've got some budding, you know, people who are really interested to develop their own. Then let us know.
And antennas is always something people can experiment with, isn't it? From any level, right from beginners. You know, they can make a dipole, but you know, there's a lot more they can do. So you know, excellent. Ed, coming back to you, I know you and all of the team here have been meeting visitors at the convention. I've got a two-part question for you. You can take it any way you like. Okay, what do you think of the convention, and what do you think of the engagement that you've had with the people that are here?
Well, the first part of the question, what I think of the convention, it's been tremendously useful for me to meet so many key people, so many people enthusiastic and passionate about their particular area and radio in general. And of course they want to talk to us because we're sort of a conduit for getting their information out there into the world. And the second part of your question was, how's their engagement been? Fabulously enthusiastic. Just so many ideas to us. One thing I would say is people they will approach sometimes and say, is it okay to submit things, or does it have to be perfectly worded or in perfect English? Absolutely not. Whatever you want. I would echo what Peter said. If somebody wants to write, please write and send it in. The more content we have, the better. So the people are so enthusiastic and hope they feel the same about us
Well,
our engagement with them.
I can tell you that's the feedback I've had as I've gone round. People have said it's been actually great to meet you, and especially last night in a social setting as well. People were enjoying the chat.
Well, that's what we're here for, isn't it?
It's been great, isn't it?
That's great. Yeah.
So, how do you see the family then? You've seen lots of input. The family at the moment. We've got RadCom in the middle. We've got RadCom Basics, RadCom Plus. How do you decide when an article comes in where that might go?
Well, it's not for me to decide, it's for us to decide, really. And it depends on the workload and the volume of work we have for one submission. It could be that it's somebody who submits something has a particular audience in mind, in which case we're able to discuss that and pick the appropriate publication.
Yeah.
But if not, we're happy to put it in either of the magazines, really.
Yep. Okay. Now this is just an open question. Is there anything else you want to tell the folks that are listening? Because I'm not the only one with questions here, right? Anything in there that you're
I'm
curious
sure there's
about?
plenty of questions people have for us, but the main thing is just to the magazine itself. We must emphasise to people that it isn't going to dramatically change now that the editorial team have changed.
Yeah.
The format of the magazine will remain pretty much the same. There'll be a few minor tweaks here and there, but just to let people know that, because I have been asked before in the past, are you going to change the magazine, and what are you going to do with the magazine? And the answer to that is, well, essentially no, it's going to stay pretty much as it was, and the format will.
I think it'll naturally evolve through time.
It will change over time, but there won't be any dramatic immediate changes to it.
We know that RadCom's fantastically important to the membership, and especially when perhaps we go to Dayton or something like that, we're talking to international amateurs who receive RadCom, and they're invariably complimentary about RadCom, and that's why they join. And it is seen as the one of the world standards of amateur radio magazines, isn't it? So it must be daunting to pick that up, right? But from what I've seen with all of you, it's in a fantastic set of hands, and I'm tremendously optimistic about the way it's working, and I'm enjoying working with you all at the moment. It's great. There's a load of ideas, aren't there, if we were coming into you and your ideas.
And that's what's so valuable about coming here, Steve, is that people that we are approachable. We just want to remind people that we are. Any ideas are good ideas, and people have very strong ideas on one side of things or in one particular direction, and that's perfectly fine. And the other thing I would say is, please don't be scared about submitting anything. It doesn't have to be in perfect English. It doesn't have to be in a certain format. We can work with people and guide them on the way. But certainly send your stuff in, and we will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to echo
second that.
Yes, I mean, radio amateurs. After all, we're all suck it and seers, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's
part of the attraction,
we don't calculate too much beforehand. We say, let's string up an antenna up there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, it should be the same thing about writing. If you're interested in something, write or email us, and we'll discuss it, and that might turn into something, and there it'll be published.
It usually does, and we can always work with people to develop their articles. After the first submission, you don't need to be perfect the first time. We can, as you say, we can evolve the article over time until it's ready for publication.
And also on that point, I enjoyed working recently on a column of a report of somebody contesting for the first time, and their experience of it was a bit disastrous. It went wrong, and I enjoyed that because it's a real experience that somebody had. And so, if there's no such thing as failure, is there?
No.
We're experimenters.
That's what the license is for, isn't it?
That's right.
If something
it might also be worth just mentioning that authors do get paid. Not very much, but they do get paid.
That's right.
And it's another incentive. Though you shouldn't submit an article because you want to make money.
No, absolutely. Really good point. But I was just going to come back to the type of entries that we have in sometimes. When Matt started first, I remember showing you one of the handwritten circuit diagram that came in.
Yeah,
and the whole thing had been handwritten because the amateur had sent it in, his printer had packed up. So the whole thing, you know, there was pages of it.
Yes, the schematics were hand-drawn with a pencil and a ruler.
But there is that much passion about people sending things in to get published or to start that process. You know, that I really enjoy that, and I know you did when it came in.
Oh, I do. I mean, turning those hand-drawn schematics into ones which we can print is obviously quite a task, but we're still grateful that that author had sent that in, because it is an excellent idea, and it really is an excellent idea. I believe that one was for a rotator controller.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, really good, and we're still working on that article, and that's due for January's issue.
And we get those little messages, sort of, what do you think about this? Can you work with this? And it starts those ideas, doesn't it?
Yes.
Which turn out to be some of the best things that we've done, because we don't want to be doing the same thing all of the time. Although new amateurs are coming in, and they sometimes, you know, they need to look at sort of back copies and things like that. RadCom Basics might help that. But the ideas that come in are fantastic, and that's what I enjoy about it. And I know you're
and it's the ideas and the people that submit them that make the magazine as good as it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's been great talking to you. I hope everybody watching has enjoyed that as well, and they contact you. The idea really is that we could talk about you know, the family of RadCom, and there is a part of RadCom for everybody, no matter where you are. You can dip into one, you can dip into all three, or you know, whatever it takes. So it's been fantastic talking to you, and I'm going to go and carry on enjoying the rest of the convention. I'm sure you're going to. Where are we now? We're Sunday lunchtime. And I bet there's a whole queue of people waiting to talk to you.
There's still people to meet.
That's absolutely. All right. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you, Steve.
And thanks for coming to the convention.
I've got with me the RSGB General Manager and also the Convention Chair, Steve Thomas, M1ACB. Steve, thanks for sparing some time.
It's okay. Afternoon to you.
Great. How's it been? I mean, you've been at the thick end of all of this now for not weeks, I guess, months?
Yeah, probably months. Yeah, it's been fantastic. We're at this stage coming towards the end. Not yet, but we're coming towards the end. And it's just great seeing it develop over that time. But not only this year, but we've built on previous years, things we've done, things we've changed. But when we get to this stage on a Sunday, you know that so many things have gone well. We hope everybody's enjoyed it. All the feedback I'm getting is that people have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it so much. It's a relief. It's very similar to if you organise a party and you're waiting and you're hoping that people come through the door at the time when you've invited them, you know? And that's how it's felt. So we've had a fantastic team leading up to it, an even bigger fantastic team during it as well. People have come, people have enjoyed it. I think it's been great. I'm very happy at the moment.
I'm sure you are. I mean, it is a culmination of many months of work, isn't it? And of course, the last real convention was 2019 in-person convention.
Yeah, 2019 was here.
Yeah.
And I think that year we saw just over 500 people, something like that. So we were aiming probably not to reach that, because people are still slightly nervous about coming back. But of course, in the meantime, we ran 2 online conventions, didn't we? Which changed the feel of the convention somewhat. And of course, last year when we ran it from your studio in Norfolk, from another studio with the Camhams in Cambridge, and from the NRC, that felt like a huge step for us, didn't it? It was amazing. We were all nervous that we could pull it off like that. But that was 2 streams just on the one day. And we had, I think it was something like 5,000 people joined us over the course of the day.
Yeah.
So we went from 500 to 5,000, and of course this time we're not going to hit those numbers, we know that, but it's bringing the 2 things that we've done in the past, the entirely in person and the entirely online, brought them back together into a hybrid meeting convention.
and I think we've done it really well, and you've been a huge part of that as
well.
We'll come to that.
Well,
bit.
there's a big team involved.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
a lot of team of us
we'll
doing
We'll go
this
through
stuff.
some of that team.
Well, maybe
in a second, I think.
If we have time.
Yeah.
But Steve, so just take us back for people at home don't realise maybe what does go into this and booking all the speakers, all of the other stuff. When do you really start planning? When did you know that this was going to be a year when we would get back to a physical convention? What roughly when?
I can't put a date on it because we were all the way through the lockdown. We knew that we couldn't run a physical one.
Yeah.
But then we thought we probably could. But you know, there was peaks and troughs in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You never know whether it's going to come back. So we had to plan for it, and we got the booking. But there was always a chance, you know, if numbers rose again, that we'd have to cancel it. But we started planning at that stage, and I honestly can't tell you how long ago, but it was months, right, many months ago. And we looked at the feedback we had from 2019 in person, and we looked at the feedback we had from last year's online one, looked at all the talks that people wanted and how that, you know, the suggestions they made, blended those two together in the hope that the feedback from both would give us a good basis for this hybrid version. And it seems to have worked out really well that way. So we started then, we looked at the topics people were interested in, we looked at the people we knew that could speak about those topics. It could be that they were writing for RadCom, or we knew they were doing talks to clubs, or they'd spoken at the convention before, or it was a topic that was new, but we knew some people, you know, we're connected to all these people through RadCom and through the society. So we just created this big long list of people that could speak, started inviting them, and here we are. This is the result. But it takes an enormous amount of planning. And of course that's just the speaker program. We've got the whole the hotel side of this.
Yes.
You know, the whatever it was, 170 bedrooms, I think, of people staying here on site. So all of that, and the meals, and you know, everything that comes together to a physical one, plus all the online stuff. So it takes a lot of planning.
I bet.
It really does.
And most things you said, I did speak to you offline earlier, and I'm just asking you, has anything really gone wrong? And you just were having a real struggle to think about it. So we're not being complacent, but I guess it has gone.
Never complacent, because people sometimes don't like to mention it at the time, and they give us some feedback later, and we always take that into account. But there's been a fantastic team at Kent's Hill, you know, management side at Kent's Hill, looking after us on the conference side, that have been really flexible and really helpful, and you know, they couldn't do enough for us. And you know, we have the gala dinner last night, which is never as stuffy as people think it is going to be. They think it's a group of people that get together and enjoy talking about amateur radio, isn't it? You know, you were there. It's that sort of environment. It's not a stuffy dinner. It's great fun to get together and have a chat with people that enjoy amateur radio, isn't it? But the staff here were tremendous at trying to make that easy, successful, run smoothly. It's been great.
And I know it's early days, and I'm not saying it on a job or something, we're volunteers like many others here, but do you think this online presence that we've brought this back with this year, do you think that's something that's here to stay?
It's very difficult to go backwards, isn't it? Once we've done that and we've extended this. But what we've tried to do with it really is we created the live stream across both days, Saturday and Sunday. And we did mostly that from lecture room 1. You know, we've got 5 here. And we tried to pick a really good mix of topics and speakers that covered, we called it the breadth of amateur radio, I think, in the stream. But it covered a wide range of things so that people watching could get a flavour of all of the different types of talks that have been here, rather than just picking one stream that could have been, you know, HF or VHF or something. We picked from all of those streams and put those on the live stream. And to be absolutely honest about it, the reason for doing that is to make it interesting from home, and also to let people know that that's what they could experience a lot more of if they were to come to the convention. So a taster really stream is what we were aiming at. So hopefully that worked and everybody enjoyed it. But so many other streams here, and of course we were with AMSAT again. The AMSAT colloquium runs with the convention, so they run a whole stream, plus the 4 streams that we run. That's an enormous range of topics and, you know, speakers. So I think it was over 50 lectures that we had. but loads of different ways that people lecture. It's not just the slides. You know, there's all sorts of things. There's videos. There's interactive parts. I know some of the speakers said they wanted a whiteboard and a pen or a flip chart because they wanted audience participation. So it's not just the sort of speaking and lecturing at people. And then of course there's the forums as well, the interactive ones. So the EMF team who've done a fantastic job on EMF for all radio amateurs in the UK. John, Peter and Ian, they've done a fantastic job for everything that's gone on the website and in RadCom, but they've done 2 sessions here. One talking about the latest calculations for EMF. But they've also
done to come in November, aren't they?
Absolutely. And they've also done an interactive forum where people could bring their problems, you know, like a clinic almost. We called it a forum. So that was very interactive. And then we had the contest forum for HF and VHF where the contesters get together and they get a chance to sort of shape the contesting of the future and, you know, meet and discuss things with the contest committees. And then we had a Meet the Board session and a Meet the Regional Team session. There was a session on brickworks. You know, those are sort of fairly RSGB things, but they complement all the other scientific and technical topics that we have that are there for beginners and for experience. You know, there's a whole range. But having that mix it's great fun creating it, but it takes a lot of effort. It really does. Back to your original question, when did this start? Well, a lot of things crammed into a.
No. You always want to say, as I am, it's a team effort.
Oh yeah.
You've led that team, so congratulations to you for this.
Could not do it without the team of staff, volunteers, and a lot of these special interest groups that are in the room around us now. You know, they bring another dimension to it. So we did a quick chat with Philip Hosey yesterday, I think it was, and I know you've been going around speaking to the special interest groups, and that again shows all the variety of amateur radio, which is what the convention is all about.
Yeah.
So that's helped to change the flavour, you know, and move that on as well. So.
I mean, as well as the convention chair, though, you are the general manager of the Radio Society of Agreement. So your day-to-day job, I guess, is the day-to-day running of the organisation. How important has it been, do you feel, for the RSGB to get people back together again?
Hugely important. Yeah, so the general manager really runs the business side of the RSGB. Again, with a very large number of volunteers, you know, in the committees, and you know, they report to the board. But the business side, so the 16 staff at HQ, they report to me and we run the business side, but that's membership and sales and finance and HR and RadCom production and exams. That's what goes on at HQ with the team of 16. But we're hearing that bringing people back together at clubs is quite tricky as well, because a lot of people seem to have got out of the habit. It's not. There's some people that are still nervous to get back together, and there's some that are just out of the habit. And I think clubs and events like this, I think they're in the same ballpark. That having them something interesting to go to will attract people. I think if it's the same old thing they could watch online, then they probably will watch online. But the whole interactive nature and the breadth and the variety and everything like that is, I think, what we've got to do and what clubs have got to do. Their unique selling point, if you like, has got to be the interactive, meeting people and what you get out of doing that.
Yeah, and it's the one thing we would try to do stuff online.
Yeah.
To replace some of those things with and things like Tonight at 8, which we're involved with a lot, and the online conventions and things, but they don't always substitute everything.
No.
We're shortly coming up to the last lecture of the day. Any final message now for members as you say farewell to them from this convention, because we're coming up, this is about the last lecture before we go over to
absolutely. It's towards the end of the day now.
Yeah.
And I would say, think about what I said about that introduction stream, that there is this breadth of amateur radio, but do not be frightened to come to the convention in the future, because we often find that people think it's going to be too scientific, too technical for them. They come once and then they come every year. It's getting them to come once. So if that taster stream does anything, that's what I'd love them to do in the future, is come to the convention, and those will be the speakers of the future. Right?
Indeed.
That's really what we want to have.
And I guess anybody watching who would like to deliver a lecture, in the future convention, or maybe tonight at 8 or something like that, to contact you?
Yep, they can contact me, absolutely. You can get my details from the website at steve.thomas@rsgb.org.uk.